The following is a presentation of the Mat Talk Podcast Network.
You are now logged into War Up on the WPIAL, featuring your hosts Greg Warnock and Jeff Upson. PA Power Wrestling. Pennsylvania is wrestling.
Welcome into a brand new edition of War Up on the WPIAL. Greg Warnock alongside Jeff Upson, here to break down the AA Southwest Regional Tournament, as well as the 4 AAA sections, and get you set for the AAA WPIAL Championships coming up this weekend. And hard to believe, next week, individual Hershey. I just can't believe it came so quick.
You know, it really has, but when you're having fun, time goes fast, right? And we've been having a lot of fun this postseason, both team and individual. So really looking forward to this weekend.
Yeah, I feel like I say that every year, though, as far as the quickness. It seems to always fly this time of year. But a lot of great wrestling over this past weekend and some surprising results as well. So let's break it all down for you. Let's first start in AA at IUP this past weekend. At 106 pounds of WPIAL is going to have a pair of wrestlers moving on. Chase Brandenburg of Carlinton, he finishes in 4th place. Colin Bartley of Laurel finishes in 6th place. And also one thing to note, too, they did wrestle to 8th place. I love that. Because now, if there is an injury, you know who the 7th best guy is.
Yeah, I love the fact that they wrestle the top 8 here. I wish AAA would wrestle top 6.
They should.
They really should. I don't see why you only wrestle a top 4. Why not wrestle a top 6 in AAA? So maybe we'll have to put a bug in Phil Mary's ear and see if we can maybe propose that. But you look at 106, and these two actually wrestled in the Constellation semifinals with Brandenburg winning that. But he injury defaulted to Nathan Pileski from North Star, so I'm hoping he's okay. He was getting beat, I believe, 9-1 at the time, so I'm hoping Chase is okay and ready to go for Hershey. Luckily, they have a couple weeks off.
Yeah, he has been wrestling well all season, all postseason, really. Ran into a couple of buzzsaws. Obviously, we talked about Bowman and Bainey and Pileski being studs at this weight class, but you hope he can be ready here in 2 weeks. 113 pounds, Joey Fischer of South Park, your champion. He does defeat a pair of wrestlers by a 1-0 score. Hunter Walk of Tyrone and Kai Burkett of Chestnut Ridge. Luke Gabig of Mount Pleasant also advancing in the WPIAL. He finishes in 6th place, but Joey Fischer with the title.
Yeah, and, you know, we're going to have him on the show here, and we're going to get to pick his brain a little bit. And, yeah, I mean, two 1-0 decisions. I'm sure he wants to maybe extend that winning percentage a little bit more, but you look at who he's wrestled. Walk is very tough, and Burkett is a returning state medalist. You knew those two were going to be tough, so I was impressed with him. And also, you know, you look at Luca Big, he dropped a match to Easton Toth, but was able to bounce back and make it into the top 6.
Yeah, and he had a tough one with Walk as well, 2-1 in the consolations. 120 pounds, Ryan Michaels of Elizabeth Forward. Man, is he on a roll. He gets a fall in the finals over Roland Mills to win the championship. Also for the WPIAL, Nick Salerno of Burrell finishes in 5th. Joey Senapal of Burgestown finishes in 6th place. So 3 representatives, which isn't surprising because we talked about how deep 120 was.
You know, I was happy to see both Joey and Nick come through because we've talked about them both a lot on this show throughout the year. And we were pretty high on Joey in the beginning of the year when he was just coming onto the scene as a freshman. So I'm happy to see it come to fruition and both those guys punch their tickets to Hershey. Talk about Ryan Michaels, though. I mean, 120, you know, definitely not the deepest weight class. Roland Mills is good, but not great. But you really saw how good Michaels is going to be, especially in the state, because Sheldon Seymour just lost in the District 4 tournament. So there's a good chance we may see Ryan Michaels at the top spot, top ranking spot going into states.
Yeah, obviously Seymour being one of his tougher. I tell you what, I have just been impressed with Michaels all postseason,
year, yeah.
all season, but all postseason especially. I feel like he has turned it up another level here in the postseason. 126 pounds, Tyler Simmerman of Derry finishes in 2nd place. Damian George of Mount Pleasant finishing in 4th place. Dylan Bruce of Elizabeth Forward also getting on the stand, a 6th place finish. Simmerman, a solid tournament, unable to knock off Jackson Arrington in the finals. But I tell you what, I think coming away from this, Dylan Bruce getting there as well. We thought Simmerman would get there for sure. We thought George likely would get in there, but I think Bruce was a little bit of a surprise.
I would say Bruce was a little bit of a surprise. You're right, but I still thought that he had a good shot of getting in, beating Suds Dubler from Glendale in the essentially blood round to get into the top 6. He beat him 2-0 in sudden victory, so that's a huge win for him. I was impressed with the way he competed, especially against some of the tougher competition. Ty Zimmerman, you look at his score against Jackson Arrington, sure, he wants that a little bit closer, but he dominated everyone other than Jackson Arrington, who's pretty good, right? Has a state championship title to his name. And Damian George, after getting kind of smoked by Ross Dahl 9-0 in the championship round, they do wrestle again in the 3rd and 4th place match. This time he lost 8-3, so I'm sure George is looking at it like, hey, I narrowed that gap, improving and going into Hershey.
And one thing for Dylan Bruce, he did forfeit his 5th, 6th place match, so hopefully he is okay here in 2 weeks for the state tournament. 132 pounds, Ian Oswalt of Burrell. He finishes in 2nd place, lost in overtime to Brock McMillan, and he knocked off Amon Ole of St. Joe's. So although he doesn't come away with the title, a solid tournament overall for Ian Oswalt. Also, you had Nate Yeagle of McGuffey finish in 4th place. He won by a disqualification over Ole to get to that 4th place spot. But Yeagle really wrestling a lot better than the previous week. He knocked off Jake Burford. He knocked off Lyons from Valley just to get to that spot. So although I would say a bad WPIAL tournament for Yeagle, he responded well here at the Southwest region.
Yeah, I agree. I was kind of concerned with him coming into regionals. He didn't have the best WPIAL tournament, but he pins Burford, and then he gets a 12-11 wild match against Lyons to get into that round. So very impressed with Nate Yeagle and what he was able to do. You also look at Ian Oswalt. He was right there with Brock McMillan, a returning state champion. He was going to Pitt, nationally ranked, and Ian Oswalt was right there, just couldn't do it, right? And I'm told that was very close. It was very, very close. So I'm interested to see, because we saw Ian take Ryan Crookham to ultimate tiebreaker last year at the state tournament.
Yep.
I'm interested to see if Ian can pull it out this year in Hershey and reverse those close matches and get a win, because man, he's
right there.
He has 40 plus wins in the season, right? He's battle tested, so I'm excited to see what he's able to do in Hershey.
138 pounds, Kenny Dushek of Freedom, the only WPIAL wrestler to advance here in a very tough weight class. He finished in 4th place. Yeah,
a very deep weight class here. You had several guys not make it into the top 6 that probably are very deserving of going to states. So for Kenny to get through here, he beat Tyler Coddington from Berlin in the quarterfinals. So, and he actually took Zach Whitmer to overtime. So he was very close to knocking off Whitmer and advancing into the finals against Cassidy. So for him to bounce back and finish in 4th place, very good showing.
145 pounds of WPIAL does not get a wrestler through in this weight class. Just a deep weight class overall. This was the weight class where everyone 1 through 7 was pretty evenly matched for the WPIAL, and I think that showed here in this weight.
Yeah, it did, unfortunately, and we kind of said that last week going into it, that Rocco Ferreira was going to have a tough time even in his first round matchup. So it just didn't pan out for the WPIAL here.
152 pounds, AJ Corrado of Burrell finishes in 2nd place. A tough 2-1 loss to Caleb Dowling of St. Joe's. Shane Kemper of Burgestown, a solid tournament for him. He finishes in 4th place. And then the news was Connor Redinger of Quaker Valley. He did not wrestle in the tournament, out for the season with an injury. So Redinger out. Kemper takes advantage of that 2nd place spot to get to the semifinals.
I mean, you imagine if Connor was here, how deep this was, right? Hudson Holbay from Westmont Hilltops, a returning state medalist, he's not going to states. You look at AJ Corrado and what he was able to do against Malachi Duval from Penns Valley, and then, of course, having Caleb Dowling, the number 1 guy in the state, just at the brink, right? And I compare it to Ian Oswalt. Those two are both very, very close to the top guys here. So I'm very curious to see if they can make adjustments, because I'd rather lose in the regionals and then come back and get a win at the state tournament. So I'm interested to see how both these guys respond to close losses here. But yeah, Shane Kemper, I thought, wrestled really well. He had a couple really tight matches. He beat Ryan Wyant from Forest Hills, and I thought he had a good tournament, especially because Connor wasn't there. So imagine if Redinger was there, we probably would have had 3-4 really good guys going.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, the way Kemper wrestled, I think he would have advanced on.
Me too.
We talked about him being right on the edge of that 5th, 6th place a week ago.
Yeah.
And the way he wrestled, I mean, he came out and performed lights out. So hoping he can keep that going here in 2 weeks in Hershey. 160 pounds, Thane Lawrence of Fraser, a title. He dominated the field, 3 falls and a tech to win the title. Ethan Barr of McGuffey also going to Hershey, a 5th place finish for him.
And you have to wonder, we had Thane on before, there's always questions when you come back from, especially a high caliber wrestler like Thane, when you come back from injury, how in shape are you? How comfortable are you going out there and performing against high level guys, right? And Thane proved it, right? There's no rust on Thane because he beat up Keegan Rothrock from St. Joe's Catholic, who's very good. He's ready to go. I really hope we get to see him and Sir Naglier battle in the state finals. I know that's a long way away, but man, that's going to be your lights out.
Probably going to be the match in AA to see in the state finals. 170 pounds, a good one in the final. Trent Schulteis of Freedom takes Tyler Stoltzfus of St. Joe's to overtime, but does fall short of 6-4 overtime loss. So Schulteis in a 2nd place finish. Also, Austin Pantelo of Quaker Valley finishing in 6th place to advance on to Hershey.
How about Pantelo? I mean, you're 4th out of the WPIAL, right? Definitely not the guy who we were expecting to come out and make it to the state tournament. But, man, he wrestled really well, rattling off 4 straight wins in order to make it to the state tournament. Very impressed with him.
Yeah, and he loses that first match by fall, and
right.
How he won those 3 matches that were all against WPIAL kids. Cole Clark of Burrell, then he beats Glenn Christner of York, who was the 2nd place finisher in the WPIAL, and DJ Slovic, who was 3rd. So he definitely proved his worth to get there.
Yeah, big time. And kind of looking back at like Nate Yeagle and wrestling better this week than he was the week before, he definitely turned it on at the right time. This was kind of a funky weight class, though, outside of the top 2, because the top 2 were very clear, Stoltzfus and Schulteis. I was very impressed with Schulteis and the way he was able to compete with Stoltzfus, who's a nationally ranked guy, and we talked about Schulteis maybe not having the best season, best Powerade tournament. I mean, you look at it, he's 33-3 coming into this tournament, so that's pretty good, but you had to question whether he was going to be able to hang, and he was right there with him.
182 pounds, Austin Wally of Elwood City and Patrick Cutchember of Quaker Valley wrestle for the 3rd time in 2 weeks. Wally gets the win once again to win the Southwest Regional title, a 7-4 victory. And in addition to those 2 in the finals, Ricky Feroci of Burrell finishes in 3rd place in a solid tournament for him. WPIAL goes 1-2-3 in this weight.
I thought I thought WPIAL would get 3 guys through here. I didn't think they would finish 1-2-3 though. So that was really impressive. Feroci coming back to take 3rd, beating a tough Andrew Scherer from Penns Valley. Austin Wally, man, he's gonna be fun to watch in Hershey. I definitely think he's the guy to beat. So he's got a target on his back, but I'm excited to see what he's able to do in Hershey.
195 pounds. The WPIAL actually wrestled pretty well here in a weight class I thought maybe wasn't as strong for the WPIAL. Garrett Boone of McGuffey finishing in 3rd place. Ethan Kane of Elizabeth Ford in 5th. And Brett Huffman of Southmoreland finishing in 6th place.
That was huge, because if you would have asked me 195 coming into it, how many District 7 would get through, I'd say 2 at the most, right? And
probably 1.
Maybe 1, yeah. Garrett Boone. I thought Ethan Kane was on the outskirts, but he was able to get a couple big wins. In fact, he beat Jake Most from Berlin to make the semifinals, and then lost in sudden victory. He was almost in the finals. So I was impressed with the way he wrestled, and Garrett Boone as well. So I'm not going to underrate these guys coming into Hershey, that's for sure.
220 pounds. The WPIAL gets a pair of wrestlers in. Robbie West of Fort Cherry finishes in 5th. John Wolf of Jefferson Morgan in 6th place.
Yeah, and you look at John Wolf. He was 6th at the WPIAL tournament.
He actually finished in 7th place because Mikey Shear of Burrell, who was the 2nd place finisher a week ago, did not wrestle in this tournament. So that moved Wolf up a spot and took him in a nice position where he got an upset win in the opening round and then received a forfeit to Jake Barbabella, who got injured in his opening match, and got him into the semifinals.
It's insane. If you would have, on my confidence pick, John Wolf would not be anywhere near the top even 10 probably here to advance in. He definitely had the luck of that, because he got, not only did he get the upset, but then he got the forfeit, right? So very impressed with him, just to the fact that he was able to get there. Robbie West as well. hey, you're going to Hershey, man.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And Donovan Kutchummer, the WPIAL champion, does not make it on. So it's just, you never know. Any given week, anything can happen. That's why you just got to keep wrestling your best and try to advance to that next week. 285 pounds, Mitch Miles of Laurel. He finishes in second place. Riley Kemper of Burgestown in third.
Yeah, I mean, this was, I say this is a deep weight class. This is one of the deeper weight classes in the Southwest region in AA. You look at the amount of talent here. Jalen Stevens is a guy who has always been one of the top guys in the state and really been ranked in the nation for most of his career. Mitch Miles, undefeated here. So you knew that Riley Kemper was going to have a difficult time, but to come back and finish third, he pins Beatty, so very, very good performance for him. This is going to be a loaded weight class in Hershey.
And we will be doing a full preview of the AA state tournament here coming up next week. One guy who is going to be advancing on as a Southwest Regional Champion, Joey Fischer of South Park, and he's kind enough to join us now on the phone. Joey, thanks for joining us.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Well, first and foremost, congratulations on your Southwest Regional as well as your WPIAL championship over the last 2 weekends. How does it feel being at 113? Are you feeling pretty comfortable with the weight? Are you feeling good about where you are right now?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I kind of thought I was going to struggle in the beginning, but it's been really easy making it down. A lot easier than I thought it would be, for sure.
What was the ultimate decider for you to go down from 120 to 113?
I felt as though I could perform pretty good at either weight. It's just, I definitely thought I for sure would do better at 113, and I kind of got unfinished business with some of those guys in that same weight class.
Joey, when you look at the Southwest region, you had 2 type matches. You had Walk in the semis and then Kai Burkett in the finals. I know you're obviously wanting to probably score more points, but walk us through those 2 matches and what's it going to take for you to get some more points on the board?
On my feet, offensively, I got to open up a little bit more. It's something, after every single match, whether it be a Texel 15-0 or it's a ultimate ride-out win, I review each and every one of my matches with my dad and my club coaches and my high school coach, and they're all on the same page usually, and for the most part, they agree that right now, a win's a win for sure. So they have nothing wrong with that, but in the same sense, it's all about dominating. So if I can go out there and put up more points on the board, then why not? So our main point right now is neutral, which I usually don't have a problem with. It's just in some of those tighter matches, I hesitate a little bit more when it comes to firing off some offense. And against some of these bigger matches where these guys know you a little bit better, I've wrestled both of those guys before, so naturally they're gonna kind of be able to feel you out a little bit quicker than any other guy would. So basically, it was more about not getting the points on the board, but actually just getting to those shots, because I've no doubt in my mind that I finish on those shots. But the hardest part for me was just kind of the hand fight, being able to get to those attacks. So that's one thing we've been working on recently is, a heavy hand fight and being able to get to your offense rather than just finishing it, because traditionally I'm always working on new ways to finish takedowns, but recently we've been working on just the hand fight and getting to the takedown. So that's been a big factor for us.
And you had mentioned how you wrestled those 2 guys before, and I know you said something about unfinished business, and obviously Gary Steen is a guy you guys are familiar with, and you guys wrestled in the 3rd and 4th place match last year at States, and I believe, was that an overtime tiebreaker match, Joey?
Yeah, it was. It went to ride out.
You guys are obviously really close, and then you throw in Brent Unger from Notre Dame Green Pond, and 13 is pretty deep. You've already punched your ticket to Hershey. You're going to get seeded by virtue of being a regional champion. What are you looking forward to? I know you said unfinished business. Do you have a fire lit? You're trying to go in there and dominate some of these guys and get a shot at revenge against a guy like Gary Steen?
Yeah, for sure. It's always the plan to go in and be hyped up, and be ready to get revenge on those same guys, make it to those big placement rounds. But at the same time, it's Hershey, and you you never know what could happen. Guys go in there real hyped up and they get thrown off. So I think this year, I mean, don't get me wrong, I do want to go in there and beat those big names and get revenge on guys I might have lost to. But in the same sense, I'm kind of going in, and I just feel a lot less pressure this year, a lot less nervous, just coming out and letting things flow more rather than being tense and tight in those matches, and just realizing that anything can happen, and it doesn't matter who you're wrestling. It just matters how you wrestle them. So that's been a big factor, not just leading up to this tournament, but even all throughout the year, is just going out there and realizing that when I'm on the top of my game, I can beat anybody. So just trying to stay as calm as I can and stay loose and carry that all throughout my matches.
And Joey, talk about you're committed to Clarion, correct? And talk about that and what led you to the Golden Eagles up there.
Well, there were a lot of factors. I mean, one of the biggest was academic-wise. They have a 5-year master's program in business, which I plan on pursuing in college. So that was a real big factor, is that if I can redshirt and then wrestle 4 more years, that's 5 years right there. So I get my master's in business and I don't have to stay any extra time. So that was a big factor. It's also very close to home. And I was looking at some bigger schools that were further away and things like that. But I definitely want to be close enough so that my family can come watch me with ease. So that was another big factor. And on top of all that, they just got a brand new facility, and it's a program on the rise. So, and I'm really confident that the coaches can take my abilities to the next level. So that's definitely a big factor. If you don't believe in your coach's ability to take you to the next level, then you got some issues there.
Well, Joey, congratulations again on winning the Southwest Regional title, and best of luck as you prepare for Hershey over the next couple of weeks, and we're excited to see you wrestle in the state tournament and finish out the season strong.
Thank you. Have a good one.
All right, thanks, Joey.
Thank you to Joey Fischer for joining us on the show. We now transition over to AAA, and instead of recapping each individual section, what we'll do is we'll talk about the preview of each weight class coming up here this weekend, and also recap the sections as we go through the weight classes. 106 pounds, the guy at the top spot, a guy that you may not have thought coming in this past weekend, Ty Waters of West Allegheny. He is your number 1 seed. He had a couple of big wins this past weekend. He defeated Mac Church as well as Jacob Haupt. Those guys are seeded number 2 and number 3 in this weight class.
You know, I got a text message. I was at the South Central Regional, and I got a text message saying that Waters beat Haupt 11-0. And I was like, man, he's going to give Church a nice run here. And I had been talking about Waters for a while on the show, right? Yeah. I kind of, not saying that he wasn't going to perform at this level, but man, he really picked a good weekend to turn it on and really make a name for himself, because up until this point we haven't seen him at Powerade. He was in for Powerade but didn't wrestle there, so for him to come out and get the dominating wins that he did, beating Jacob Haupt 11-0, that's a big deal, and then obviously holding off against Mac Church, who really has been basically the top guy in the state all year until he lost to Kasich. So I'm very impressed with Waters. I can't wait to see him this weekend and see what he's able to do.
And watching both of those matches as well, he dominated. He controlled both of those matches. There was never a time where it's like, oh, he escaped with that win, or he barely got that win, or he got lucky with his tilts on Haupt. Like, it was a dominating performance over Haupt, and then he controlled the match against Mac Church. So I was very impressed with him. He wrestled fantastic, and I'm interested to see now how the rest of this is going to go. I mean, you look at this weight class as a whole, Briar Priest now the number 4 seed with that, and he has been wrestling strong all season long. So really the top 4 here, 106, are solid.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say there's five solid, really good guys here, maybe even 6. But you look at how deep Section 1 was, right? You had Briar Priest defeating Vincent Kilkeary for, I think, like the 3rd or 4th time this year. And then you had Troy Homan from Penn Trafford come back to take 3rd. So Briar Priest, we saw him in the finals of Powerade against Mac Church. He's now in that top half with Ty Waters, but then you also have Kilkeary up there, so he's likely going to see Kilkeary again for like the 9th time, and then possibly a chance to meet Waters. I'm really excited for 106 in the WPIAL because, man, it is so stacked. You have Jacob Haupt up there as well. Chad Ozias pretty much walked through Section 2. He's a guy that I think is going to push to the field here. So, and then you can't sleep on a guy like Tyler Chappell either, right? Tyler Chappell's been wrestling tough. But 106 is crazy, man. In the state, I think I tweeted that out, that 106 is just insane, the amount of shifting and the amount of guys that are just knocking each other off. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it should be a good one for sure. And I think it is actually seeded correctly as
so
well.
So do I. I do too.
As far as putting the 3 Section 4 guys in the 3 Section 1s before you get to Ozias as well as Chappell. So I like the way the WPIAL had it seeded here. 113 pounds, Carter Dybert of Franklin Regional. He is your top seed. Nico Taddy of West Allegheny, number 2. And I'll tell you what, Taddy looked dominant as well in his performance. Mason Prinky, number 3. Ethan Bergen, number 4.
Yeah, and you look at, I mean, we talk about depth again, maybe not as much as 106, but there's certainly a lot of horsepower here. And you had mentioned Nico Taddy. He got a tech fall over Diggins and then got a fall over Dammy from Canon-McMillan. So another freshman who I'm very excited about from West Allegheny. Those are the 2 guys I talked about a lot in the beginning of the year as top incoming freshmen. Taddy has a couple big-time wins, including one over Mason Prinky this year. Mason Prinky's a returning state medalist, had a great tournament at Hershey last year. Now he's on the bottom half, potentially see a rematch with Nico Taddy. But then there's Nick Gorman as well from NA, who was at 106 for majority of the year until he went up in the postseason. I'm excited to see where the WPIAL shakes out here because even Bergnick, you look at him and what he's been able to do. He's a returning state qualifier. Remember last year, he had a great regional tournament last year to get him the states. I think we could see a similar performance here. It's going to be fun because Carter Dybert's that guy, but there's a lot of people hunting, for him.
Yeah, I would say there's definitely a solid top 4 here, 113, and then you have those wild cards that could pull upsets on any given day. 120 pounds, Dylan Chappell of Seneca Valley. He is your top seed. Number 2 seed is Nate Roth of Latrobe. He had a solid tournament in beating Dom Giordano of Kiski, who's your number 3. Dylan Coy of North Allegheny, who lost to Dylan Chappell, sits at number 4.
Yeah, and maybe not as much depth as 6 and 13, but 20 is very tough with Chappell at the top there. He's likely going to see either Coy again or Costa Moore. Costa Moore was a state qualifier last year. Dylan Coy didn't wrestle in the postseason with some weight issues. Dylan Chappell, he finds a way to win, it seems like, all the time. So I expect him to come away with a victory here. But on the bottom half, I think it's a little bit more open, right? I think Nate Roth is that guy. He's been very consistent throughout the year. He's just been wrestling really lights out since Powerade. Dom Giordano's up there, and Evan Whiteside's up there as well from Gateway. But I think this is Nate Roth to lose.
Do you like having Roth and Giordano and Whiteside all down on the bottom half and having Coy and Costamore up there with Chappell?
There's only a guy I would say maybe having Whiteside up at the top to give him a chance against maybe a guy like Costamore or even Coy. So I'm indifferent. I mean, I think you're really splitting hairs there, but maybe having Whiteside up top.
You do like Giordano over Coy though?
Yeah, I do. Just body work. Coy, and it's tough because they were both second in their section. Again, I think you're splitting hairs. I have Coy ranked higher, but I can see how they seeded it that way. So I'm not upset about that. But because either way, you're going to have to beat one of those guys, right? So you're still the 3rd seed or the 4th seed. So
right. No doubt about it. 126 pounds, Rocco Welsh of Waynesburg, your top seed. Finn Sullivan of Franklin Regional, your number 2. Curtis Phipps of Norwin, your number 3 seed. Dylan Evans of Chartiers Valley, your number 4. And how about Finn Sullivan knocking off Curtis Phipps? I
mean, that was huge. That was huge. When I heard that, I was shocked. I mean, not shocked, but I was very surprised because Phipps has been so consistent this year, right? He's a senior. We talked to him after Powerade. He just seemed laser focused. He pinned Sullivan. Now, granted, that was a close match at the county finals, right? Until he pinned him defensively, nonetheless. So, but for Finn, I feel like Finn's been close, but he just hasn't. I wanted to see him compete hard against Rocco Welsh in the Powerade. He did, but he lost. So I would say this was this was a needed win for him, right? I think he needed this confidence-wise to say, yes, I can beat the top guys. Phipps was the number one guy in the state, and I would say it was no question about that, right? Now you have Finn beating Phipps, and now you're saying, well, how do we see this, right? Because Rocco beat Finn, lost to Phipps. Finn, beat Phipps recently, lost to Rocco at the Powerade tournament. So I don't know.
Do you like it?
Me personally, I would go the other way. I would say Finn, Phipps, Rocco, just because the Finn and Rocco match at Powerade was really tight. There was a lot of funky flurries there, and
questionable calls, some would say.
Yeah, I wouldn't say questionable. It's a hard match to score. That was a hard match to score, in my opinion. There was just a lot of flurries. There was just a lot of action. So, yeah, maybe questionable, but also you look at what Phipps did to Rocco Welsh. If you go back and watch that match, he controlled that match, right? He pretty much dominated that match. So, and then of course I give Finn more credence just because he has that state final appearance, right? He was in the state finals. Now, granted, yeah, Rocco beat him, but you also have a win over the number one guy in the state. I'm probably going to put you number one, right?
And a guy who beat Rocco.
Yeah. So, again, we're maybe splitting hairs a little bit.
And we're talking about how close Solomon and Phipps are. Why wouldn't you want to separate those two to see if they, are back in a final?
Yeah, Rocco, they showed him a lot of respect, which he deserves. He definitely deserves to have that respect. I'm just thinking, Finn's been there. He's been to the state finals. He's, as a sophomore, I think that weighs a little bit heavier for me when I'm looking at seeds. But again, I'm not ever going to complain about the Southwest region seeding because the rest of the state is out of control with seeding. They're awful. So I'll never complain again. Not that I didn't know that, but I just really showed this year how awful the Northeast, the Northwest, and the South Central regional seedings are. So this is heaven compared to what they have.
Some other guys in a weight class where you have top three guys in the state, owning a spot here at 126. Dylan Evans has been wrestling great. He gets the number 4 seed, like him there. But this is a deep weight, too. You got Zach Wright, you got Bryce Wilkes, Jacob Gardner, Lucas Capusta. These are some solid guys that are going to be going at it.
Yeah, and, it seems like Evans has been that steady horse here, right? And, he hasn't been able to get past Rocco Welsh. He's lost to him a number of times. But other than that, he's been wrestling pretty good. So, you have to be top 4 here, and I think he has a really good chance of doing that. I like Zach Wright. I like the way he's been wrestling. I also like Bryce Wilkes. And a guy I'm not going to look past is Jacob Gardner, right? If he can get hot, maybe he can punch a ticket through, but I'm obviously having 3 very, very good guys here, the top 3 guys in the state. Everyone's going to be scrapping for that 4th spot. So it should be fun. I'm picking Evans to come out in that 4th spot, though.
Yeah, he wrestled really well this past weekend in the section tournament. 132, Gabe Willishaw of Latrobe, your top seed, thanks to his win over AHR. Herrera Rondon, your number 2 seed. Cole Hammett of Waynesburg, number 3. Garrett Thompson of Franklin Regional, your number 4. And then a guy right there behind, Jordan Waters of West Allegheny, number 5. This one should be a fun one as well. You got the top 2 guys in the state, so 2 spots taken up. But then from there, anyone could claim those last 2 spots as far as going on to the state tournament. One guy who's not in this weight class, Jimmy Baxter, he tried his best to go, did re-injure himself in the match against Waters and tried to go into consolations. He was literally walking on one leg. He was not even able to put any weight on his knee whatsoever. He ended up losing into consolations and had to injury default out, but he did give it a go to try to at least advance to the next week.
I feel for Jimmy, man. He's a good kid. He's just been a consistent wrestler for Canon-Mac, and you love to see him go out swinging, right? He, going out there on one leg, like I think you actually told me that. You said he was out here literally wrestling on one leg. He gave it his all, man, and that's all you can ask for. He left it on the mat. He's going to Seton Hill next year. He's going to be fine. So we wish you the best, Jimmy. I look at this weight class. Cole Hammett he went to Ultimate Tiebreaker with Waters,
which was one heck of a match, by the way.
Right. So you look at how deep this is, because of course Hammett is a guy who is a returning state medalist. He's the going to be the guy on the bottom half people are going to be looking out for. But don't sleep on Killian Laffey as well from Pine Richland. He kept it to a decision against HR. I know that doesn't sound like a big deal because HR doesn't score a ton of points, but that's still a really good performance. Garrett Thompson as well. I think him and Waters is going to be a great quarterfinal should they both get there.
That's been one of the more exciting ones I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, both evenly matched, I think. I think both those guys are going to do well. Thompson has battled back and forth with Jimmy Baxter, and I think Waters is a guy who, as a senior, right, he wants to get there. He wants to get to that state tournament. So
he's been there once before.
Yeah,
so
he has.
He's a
right?
state qualifier. And I'll
2
tell you
years
what,
ago, right?
If he wrestles this weekend like he did this past weekend in the section tournament, he will advance to Hershey. He wrestled so well.
You heard it here first, right?
That's right.
Gray called it, right? 32 is definitely going to be fun. I really hope we see a Powerade rematch with Gabe and HR. Man, that I could watch that 10 times. That was a heck of a match. Let's make it happen.
I think it will. It's going to be a lot of fun, and may see it again the following week as well. You never know. 138-pound Sam Hilligus of North Hills is your top seed. Wyatt Henson of Waynesburg, your number 2. Chan Shear of Seneca Valley, your number 3. John Altieri of Norwin, your number 4.
You know, and I like this weight class just because you have a lot of depth here. A lot of depth, much like 13 and 6 that we talked about earlier. Obviously, you have 2 really top guys. You have Sammy Hilligus and Wyatt Henson, 2 of the top guys in the state. 2 seniors, or I'm sorry, 2 upperclassmen that have wrestled before. But then you have Chan Shear, right? Kind of a guy who is a loose cannon, right? He can be down big and then come back and pin anybody, right? We've seen him do that before. But then you have more, I'd say not consistent, but guys that you know what to expect from them. Guys like Max Stediford. You also have Cale Picazo from TJ. He's been wrestling lights out this year. I've been really impressed with him. And Tony Salopek from West Mifflin. He's been very close with Picazo. In fact, he has 11 losses. I think probably 6 of those are to Picazo. So, and John Altieri, kind of another guy who maybe a little bit under the radar, but you have a lot of juniors here. A lot of those guys I just mentioned are all juniors. Stediford, Shear, and Picazo and Salopek are all juniors. So looking forward to them battling it out because I would say there's a little bit more openness here, right? I'd say there's 3 pretty heavy guys, right, with Shear, Henson, and Hilligus, but I wouldn't be surprised to see somebody else sneak in.
I'll tell you, Hilligus is going to take a spot. Henson's taking a spot. Those 2 have been dominant as far as this weight class. But from there, Picazo had to go to overtime to beat Salopek in the section tournament, so that one's close. Chan Shear only won 6-4 over Max Stediford in the semifinals, so that one's going to be a quarterfinal matchup. And then we're not even talking about John Altieri yet, so you're right. I mean, I think even the 3rd place, I don't even know if Shear is a guarantee at this point. He's been wrestling great. He does get those falls. He is somebody who had such a great Powerade tournament and really has been wrestling well all year, but I'm excited to see where it all shakes out.
Yeah, and that's the thing with Shear. Like you said, he's really good. It's just that, if he doesn't get that fall, can he grind out a win? And he can. It's just a matter of if you live by the sword, you die by the sword type thing, right? So you want to make sure you're wrestling smart, right? Especially when you're talking about advancing the states.
145 pounds. This one might be the most fun weight class just as far as top down, who's going to end up advancing. You like Ty Linsenbigler, the top seed out of Hempfield. But from there, Jared Kessler of Connellsville comes in at number 2. Mason Spears of Franklin Regional, number 3. Jackson Gray of Mount Lebanon, he's your number 4. Nathan Luquez is number 5. Mikey Zakar of Thomas Jefferson, number 6. Antonio Emilio of Seneca Valley, number 7. Freddie Junko of North Allegheny, number 8. I only say that because this weight class is 8 deep.
It's insane, right? I saw some back and forth on Twitter about which is the deepest weight class, 45 or 95. 45 is really freaking tough. You look at these guys here. You have a lot of heavy hitters. You got, Ty Linsenbigler is that top guy, being a returning state medalist. But Jackson Gray, he's had a heck of a season this year. Mason Spears, another guy, heck of a season. Neither one of those guys have ever made it to the state tournament, but they're right there, right? Kessler, ever since he moved up to 45, he has a win over state medalist. I think this is the right weight for him. Then you have Antonio Emilio, right? A guy who made it to the state tournament before. He's up there as well. This is a crapshoot, man. There's gonna be some really good wrestlers who don't make it to Hershey. Freddie Junko, another guy who's been a 4-time regional qualifier, has over 100 wins. He's never made it to states. Is this a year?
Yeah, he dropped an 8-4 decision to Emilio this past weekend. Luke has then beats Emilio 3-1 to win the section title. This one's it's gonna be interesting to see how it all shakes out as far as that goes. You look at the seeding. Do you think they got it right 1 through 8?
I mean, you could have thrown. I mean, other than the first seed, right? Ty Linsenberger is a clear number 1, but I mean, you could have thrown them all up and said pick one because they're all that close. I think, but no, I think the seedings. I think they're very close to they're very close to the rankings that I have. And you look at, I mean, there's just not much you can do, right? There's just so many guys that have battled back and forth throughout the season, right? Some of these guys have split matches. You look at some of the first round matches, Freddie Junko and Chris Beatty. Chris Beatty was a guy who won Section 4. That's a first round matchup. That's going to be a lot of fun. I look at Ricky Armstrong, Mikey Zakar, Emilio and Stone King, still not a bad match either. So a lot
Stafford
of
good.
Stafford and Lucas, right? So I mean, this is so deep that I really don't know what to expect here. I think Linsenberger has the edge, but remember, he was in overtime with Emilio at the quad meet.
Yep. And an 8-7 win over Spears in the sections.
Right.
So it was tight.
It's crazy, man. I just really don't know what to expect. I'm very excited. If there's one bracket I can't wait to dissect and look at, it's probably 45.
152 is also pretty deep as well. Cole Spencer of Pine Richland remained undefeated. He's your top seed in this weight. Sammy Starr of Kiski, number 2. Chase Kranitz of Norwin, right behind at number 3. Tanner Rohaley of Canon-McMillan, your number 4. But you still have Daniel Yetzik in there at 5. You also have Grant McKay of North Allegheny at 6. Jack Pletcher of Latrobe, 7. Drew Vlasnik of Seneca Valley, he is at number 8. And that doesn't even include the Section 2 champion, Jacob Duncan of Ringgold. So this weight class equally as impressive.
Yeah, this one is bonkers as well. I mean, you have less of the state prowess here, but you have guys that have been there before. Cole Spencer was a state medalist 2 years ago, right? Didn't make it to the states last year. You have Drew Vlasnik, been in the mix. Dan Yetzik, he's been to states before. Tanner Rohaley was at states last year. Then you have throwing guys like Sammy Starr. He's just a juggernaut, right? Sammy Starr is the guy that we didn't even mention at 45, Enzo Meraki was not there, right? He didn't compete in the sectional tournament. That's a guy who we thought probably was going to be at 52, and then Sammy Starr comes in and he beats Vlasnik, and then I'm not sure what to expect here. That bottom half, I think it's going to be fun to see because him and Krantz have gone back and forth, very close matches. Grant McKay, I'm not sleeping on him, man. He's really good. And for a freshman at this weight, I think he's going to come out and battle hard with some of these upperclassmen. Jack Pletcher as well. I mean, he's a guy who last year had a great WPIAL tournament. I'm not sure what to expect here. I just know that there's going to be probably four or five guys that are really good and going to be ranked in the state that aren't going to be making it to the states. These are the ones that upset me because you look at, and I'll get on my soapbox real quick, but you look at other districts and who they're qualifying, especially at this weight, and it's just not fair, right? Because you have all these guys just clumped together here at 52 in the WPIAL, and then you look at District 1 or the Northwest region, and you're like, man, like these guys are way better than them, and they're not making the states. Just move to Punxsutawney, move somewhere, move in with Dyson Gold.
He's got room in his house.
Yeah, for sure.
He would love to have those guys.
Yeah, it's just tough, man, because you're going to have a lot of guys sitting at home that definitely could be competing. So I'm looking forward to 52, 45, all these weights.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you can make the argument about other weight classes as well in other districts. So I guess to attack your soapbox, I would say it evens out. But I agree with you. I mean, it's so much deep. There's so much talent at these weight classes that it's a shame that we can't see these guys compete statewide. But you look at the 152, and again, there's going to be a lot of good first-round matchups here in addition to the quarterfinals. You got Nate Stevenson taking on Jack Pletcher. That should be a really good one. You also have Vlasnik taking on Jacob Duncan or Ringgold. So it's just going to be a lot of fun to see it all break out.
It's going to be crazy, man. I can't wait to see how it shakes out.
160 pounds, Jack Bloomer of Kiski, he is your top seed. Luca Augustine of Waynesburg, your number 2. Brendan Finnerty of Thomas Jefferson, your number 3. Casper Hinckley of Connellsville, number 4.
And we talked about 45 and 52 and how deep they are, and 60's definitely not anywhere near those, but you still have some solid wrestlers with Jack Bloomer, Luke Augustine. Jack Bloomer's only losses in that Powerade Finals. He's a guy that had suffered that tough loss at states last year, came back and avenged that loss. He's a guy who I know wants to come away with a state title. I mean, he wants that gold medal in Hershey really bad. But it's not going to be an easy test, right? Luke Augustine's tough. In fact, he's going to have most likely Trevor Verkleer in that quarterfinal round if he can outlast Ian Branister. So, I'm not sure what to expect here outside of these top two. I think Casper Hinckley's been a guy who's been consistent. I like Alex Weck, too, from Fox Chapel. He had a good sectional tournament. What are we going to expect from Brandon Finnerty from TJ? I don't really know. Luca and Jack are the clear top two. But the other two, I'm not, I really think it's up for grabs.
Do you like the seeds of Trevor Verkleeren and Ian Ewing? Verkleeren gets the number 8 seed in this one. Ian Ewing, the number 10 seed. These are two guys who were at 152, moved up to 160. Verkleeren beats Ewing in overtime in the semis. Bloomer beats Verkleeren 7-2. And we're talking about a guy who's going to be competing for a state title, only knocking him off 7-2. Do you think they deserved a little bit more respect in here?
I thought Verkleeren did. Ewing, you got to finish. You have to get that win over Verkleeren. You're going up a weight class. You're not going to get as many looks. I thought Verkleeren is the guy who probably should have. I mean, because unfortunately he's going to run in. Should he win, he's going to run into a finals rematch of the Section 1. So he's the guy I think has a gripe. Ian Ewing, I would still rather be on that side where you can at least have a chance to wrestle back, which, I mean, Verkleeren will as well, but I just think, I don't know. I think you look at that Alex Wecht and Casper Hinckley, that quadrant there, that's the one I'd want to be in, right? So I don't know. I think you could probably throw Verkleeren down there and give him a shot to maybe make the semifinals.
170 pounds maxed out of Mount Lebanon. He's your number 1 seed. Tyler Kokak of Hampton, number 2. Nick Delp of Kiski, number 3. Eli Baranski of South Fayette, number 4. All 4 of which section champs this past weekend.
Yeah, and the top 4 here are very solid. As you mentioned, section champs, but there's a lot of other guys here that you got to keep an eye out. Liam Volk-Kloss, you have Matt Furman from Canon-Mac, Brian Finnerty, you have Cooper Baxter. Even his first-round match with Frank Guzzi is going to be tough. I look at Stout. He's a clear number 1, in my opinion. Delp is a return state medalist, but Stout's been very consistent. I don't know what it is that they eat at the Stout household, but whatever it is, it works because they are just so consistent. As a freshman last year, I think he was like a deer finding his legs, right? He was just trying to get, still trying to learn the ropes a little bit, and now this year you can see how much he's developed. Eli Brinsky, another guy, I feel like he's been around forever. He's a guy who I think has a chance to punch a ticket to states. That bottom half, Kokak, Delp, I think that's a toss-up match. I think you look at Furman and see what he can do. Finnerty, I'm excited about this. I think the top 4 guys here are solid, but I wouldn't be surprised to see some other guys try to sneak in here.
Yeah, I really like the top 4 in this weight class. I was thinking about this back and forth. I don't know how you would have seeded it. You could have given the number 2 seed any other way, maybe Delp or Brinsky as opposed to Kokak. I don't know how you separate. I mean, I would have loved to have seen Delp and Brinsky in the semifinal matchup, but Kokak with his fall in the first period over Vauclaws just past weekend, that gives a little more credence. I think that's probably why he got the 2.
Yeah, and he has good wins on the season, right? So I mean, I think he's deserving of the 2. He was a state qualifier, so. Delp is a state medalist, but I think this is gonna bode well for all 4 of them. I think clearly Mac Stout is the number 1, and Delp's gonna have a good match with Kokak should they meet. But yeah, it's the top 4 here are tough.
182 pounds, your top seed, Garrett Ninehouse of Canon-McMillan. Your number 2, Justin Hart of Hampton. Number 3, Donna McMillan of Peters Township. And number 4, Nick Marcinelli of North Allegheny. And Hart did knock off Marcinelli in the Section 3 finals. A 3-2 win for Hart, which is what separates those 2 guys.
Yeah, and Hart's been to the state tournament every year that he's been wrestling in high school. So he's a guy who's not he's accustomed to that, right? But Donovan McMillan's the guy I'm keeping an eye on. I think McMillan has a chance to really bust open the bracket if he can get into the finals here. I like the way he wrestles. I'm not saying he's going to beat Garrett Ninehouse. I'm just saying he's really fun to watch, and he's very dangerous. Nick Marcinelli coming down from 95, that's a big move for him. I think he could have a potential really good match quarterfinals with Dakota Rogers. Garrett Ninehouse is head and shoulders above everyone here, but the next couple spots here are going to be a lot of fun. I think Hart and McMillan obviously are those guys, but can Marcinelli, can he come back? Can he wrestle hard? What about Riley O'Mara, Jared Sergio from Kiski area? What about Dakota Rogers, AJ Ryan? There's a lot of guys here that I think are kind of on the bubble.
I like McMillan a lot to get to that final, and then I do like Hart as well to advance on. So that last spot there will be up for grabs. Marcinelli, though, he's wrestled strong, so we'll see how it shakes out. 195, Luke Stout of Mount Lebanon, your number 1 seed. Luke Montgomery of Bethel Park, your number 2. After they're wrestling for about the 1,000th time, I think, this year that they've wrestled.
They've wrestled a whole heck of a lot, and there's a good chance they could wrestle again this weekend and possibly next weekend as well. So Luke Stout beat him 11-4 in the Eastern Area tournament. He then beat him 6-2 in a dual meet. Then he beat him on January 18th, 8-3, and then he beat him in the section finals 5-0. Those are all Luke Montgomery's losses, are all to Luke Stout.
Pretty impressive, and they're actually solid wins as well for Stout. It's not.
They're
getting a little closer though.
Maybe a little bit. I mean, you look at like Luke Pletcher and Mickey Philippi, how many times they wrestled, and Mickey Philippi was able to get a couple wins, but it seems like Stout is just, he's that good, right? He's that good, but I think these are the two clear number 1 and 2, but 95 is stacked, and that's even without Marcinelli, Whitmer, and Waitman that moved to other weight classes. It's still really stacked. Justin Kramer is sitting on the top half there. Logan Harmon as well is up there with Luke Stout. Tyler O'Haley is up there. And then you look at the bottom half, I like Roskoski being down there. See a potential match with him and Noah Tustin. You also have Caleb Hartung. I like 95 a lot. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Even though you have two really top 2 guys, I think the rest of the field here is going to be a lot of fun to see who comes out.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Although I've been really impressed with Roskoski, all season long. So I'm really interested to see how he does here this upcoming weekend. Those 3 guys, though, I think moving out of the weight class solidifies 145, 152 is probably my favorite 2 weights, and then 195 being number 3.
Yeah, I mean, when you looked at, if you would have asked me 2 weeks ago, 95 hands down.
Right, adding those 3 guys in.
But in terms of rankings, you look at the amount of WPIAL guys here ranked, it's incredible because, these guys are some of the top guys in the state that aren't going to make it to the state tournament. Justin Kramer and Logan Harmon are 2 guys that are back and forth. I would say them and Roskoski are all in the mix there. But you can't sleep on Noah Tustin either. He finds ways, and he wrestles kind of goofy. Caleb Hartung as well. He's a 30-match winner and a senior. So I just really like 95 a lot, even without those other guys that kind of vacated.
220 pounds, John Myers of Greensburg-Salem, your top seed. Cole Waitman of Bell Vernon, your number 2. Dylan Ferretti of Hempfield, number 3. Cole Whitmer of Trinity, your number 4. So 2 of the 95 guys in the top 4 at 220.
Yeah, and I was curious to see how they were going to seed this with Waitman coming up to 220 from 95. Now, if you remember at 95, he had 2 wins at the Trojan Wars against state medalists, Jake Lucas and Max Hale. So those are 2 big-time wins, but those were at 95. Him coming up to 220, I was, kind of curious to see if they would give maybe someone like Dylan Ferretti the 2nd seed, or even Cole Whitmer, because he was a state qualifier last year. But Waitman, definitely, he earned that respect of the committee here, being the 2nd seed. Look, 220 is not easy, right? You have Eddie Farrell down there from Fox Chapel. You have Evan Miller and Dylan Ferretti all in the bottom half with Waitman. And then you look at the top half, Whitmer and Dawson Dietz, who we had talked about last week, that I was kind of really surprised that he went down to 220 as opposed to heavyweight, because 220 is so loaded now. So I don't know what to expect in terms of the number 2 through 4, right? Because I think John Myers is a clear number 1 here. He's just been so good and consistent ever since he went to Super 32 earlier in the preseason. It's those other 3 guys. Can Ferretti hang? Because I've seen Ferretti kind of, he's been up and down. He's had a few head scratchers. We're like, how did he lose that match? But other ones, he's wrestled really well. So that bottom half is the one that excites me because I'm trying to figure out who's going to advance in.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. It's going to be a lot of fun to see. I guess you could look at the seed and say, Cole Whitmer got the short end of the stick, because of the fact that he was dominant in the section tournament and took care of business against Evan Miller.
And he's a state qualifier, right? He made it to states last year, and it goes back to 26. Where I'm looking at, Waitman is essentially a freshman because last year he only wrestled 13 matches, so he had nothing really on his resume. But you look at Whitmer, he was a state qualifier last year, won his section. So yeah, if I'm him, I'm probably like, why are you putting me on the top half with John Myers? Put me on the bottom half to give me a shot, So yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's again splitting hairs a little bit, but it'll all work itself out.
285 pounds, Isaiah Vance of Hempfield. He is your number 1 seed. William McChesney of Greensburg-Salem, number 2. Ben Grafton of North Allegheny, your number 3. And Quentin Franklin of South Fayette, your number 4.
You look at how deep Section 1 is here with Vance and McChesney here. I'm impressed with the way they've been wrestling. But then you throw in guys like Quinn Franklin, who was a state qualifier. It looks like he's back to form. He's healthy. I'm excited to see if he can kind of, keep it close. I'm not saying Isaiah Vance is going to breeze through this weight class, but he's the clear number 1 here. But McChesney is like, okay, can he do well? He's a sophomore, right? Ben Grafton's a guy I'm looking at like as a senior. This is your time, man. He's been eyeing this for a while. He's in a very tough position because Ryan Howard's down there, Jack Diltz is down there, Eli Reese is down there. I like Eli Reese. He beat him in the sectional finals, and then McChesney as well. So that bottom half is going to be interesting. Franklin, I think, is probably the guy who you're looking at. Can he come through as a senior? So it's going to be fun.
Yeah, these guys, I think, fortunate with the depth wasn't quite as there when you had a couple of guys, Stone Joseph and Giomar Ramos, out of the weight class. But the opportunity's there, and we'll see how it all shakes out. Should be a lot of fun, though, this upcoming weekend, all the wrestling action at Canon-McMillan.
Yeah, I'm really excited, Greg. We'll be there and giving you some coverage. And, man, it's going to be – we're going to see a lot of good wrestling. I may be biased, but – the WPIAL tournament is probably some of the best wrestling you'll see in the state.
Yeah,
the Northeast region, District 11 is really tough, but it's really goofy the way they have it seated. Like you're going to see some really weird quarterfinals where you're having like a District 12 champion get just mauled by a District 11 third placer, and the WPIAL is just. I love the way they do it. I'm going to give them props because the way they do it right. There are a few changes I'd like to see. You got to wrestle the 6th here. You got to get 6 place winners here. I think that just is that makes sense, right? That's an easy fix. Buy a couple more medals. But the WPIAL does it right especially with the seeding.
You don't even have to give them a medal. You just wrestle them for 5th, 6th. I don't.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't need it. Yeah, you don't need a medal, but it.
I don't know. Do they give a medal for 7th and 8th in Southwest region? I don't think they do.
I don't know.
I think they only give the top 6, but they wrestle that spot to see just. And I think it's good too for the wrestlers because now, if you're the 6th place guy, you're likely not going to go on. Whereas if you're the 5th place guy, now hey, I'm the next man up. I need to stay warm. I need to stay ready to go just for a few more days just in case. So and it's one more mat that's down. You wrestle while the championships and 3rd place are going on. Canon-McMillan Gymnasium has no problem holding that. I mean, they've done it plenty of times before. So I agree with you. That's one change I would make sure that they have. Outside of that, just to echo your thoughts, that I agree with you that they do it right with the seeds. We're sitting here splitting hairs about a 3 and a 4 seed just so somebody's on a different half of the bracket. So if that's the worst thing we're doing, then I think they got it right.
Yeah, for sure. Me too. And at the Surge, we made a 5th and 6th place match this year, and I didn't have medals for them, but it was still mat time. It's a preseason tournament, right? You paid money to come here and wrestle. I want to get you as much mat time as you can. So, we didn't see a ton of forfeits or injury defaults from that. So I just, I think it shows like, hey, especially when we do the rankings, and it's like next to my name, I got regional 5th, regional 6th, right? You're not just a regional qualifier. You're regional 5th, regional 6th. Yes, I didn't make it to state, but I was right there. So I think that's a good thing especially to retain some people. I don't know. Maybe I'm being crazy.
Especially when you're talking about taking 20, when all you need to do is take 4, because you can only take 4 the following week. Take 4 out of section tournament, have a perfect 16-man bracket, but you take 4 more so you get those kids more mat time.
Right.
So if that's the case, then why not give them more mat time to get a 5th or 6th place match?
No, I agree with you there, Greg. But you won't see me complaining too much because, like I said, other regions, y'all need to take some notes. Take some notes because it's bad. But we'll discuss that at a later date.
Want to thank Joey Fischer of South Park for joining us on the show. From our broadcast partner, Jeff Upson, I'm Greg Warnock. Thanks for listening in to War Up on WPIAL.